Hello, Planet Earth. Welcome to my YouTube channel. We're at IDK, my BFF Jill 730.
My BFF Jill 730.
I'm Preston L. Young, wishing you warm salutations and congratulations as always. You've made your way to the Buffyngton Post.
Don't make a lot of noise.
Today it's time for another Buffyngton Post recap and review, and so I'd like to invite you all to reach into your super gay Buffy bag and pull out your preferred copy of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Giles, Season 11, Issue Number 1, Girl Blue, Part 1. Alright, so of course we have two covers this month. We've got our traditional cover, which is Giles and Rue observing us and not observing the Peaches. They're an issue. And we've also got Giles, as he should appear, as 'twere, reading a book that I forgot to look up the meaning for. But anyway, it's like middle-aged Giles, but this is what we're really dealing with, is kid Giles, okay? But before we get into this, previously, in the Buffyverse.
Previously.
So at the end of Season 8 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Giles was murdered by Twilight, who was inhabiting Angel's body. It's a whole long story. Anyway, Giles got his neck all snapped. So all through Season 9 of Angel and Faith, Angel was on this mission to bring Giles back to life in a world without magic because Buffy destroyed magic because she was so distraught over Giles' death in the first place. So sure enough, Angel and Faith end up putting all the pieces together to actually bring Giles back to life, but oops, because of Sophronia and Lavinia, he actually came back as like a 13-year-old boy. But in Season 11, Giles actually had to get a new identity because the US government was cracking down on magical folk, and since Giles had died and come back to life, and now he's this magically 13-year-old boy, they had to hide Giles' real identity and kind of put him in high school so that he could fit in for a second and not be taken into the safe zones that are not internment camps. So all through Seasons 10 and 11, Giles was a boy, but we kind of sent Giles off in the middle-ish of Season 11, and he was nowhere to be seen until the very last issue, and now we're picking up with what Giles has been up to this whole damn time, while he was kind of sequestered away to be hidden because, his body's all magically made and he shouldn't exist. He's supposed to be this dead guy, but he's not. It's a whole thing.
Etc. And so now we're going to pick up with what Giles has been up to during Season 11 in Giles, Issue Number 1. It's Girl Blue, Part 1. Here we go.
You ready?
Another slice of the life of Master T.J. Henderson. Super intelligent, a fine young gentleman. A 10-year-old whiz kid, busting high school. A pugnacious little shorty with 1,000 IQ. He's got away with the ladies and he's keeping it real. Your favorite little study buddy, he knows the deal. Daddy's still just a kid. On the ball, very clever. You could say that he's bright, brainy, gifted, whatever.
Your brother is smart.
He's a smart guy. Smart guy. Smart guy. He's a smart guy.
So our issue opens up on this bridge in San Pedro, and there's an eclipse and lightning, and there's something howling in the distance. And Giles is jumping off this bridge in San Pedro, and he's thinking to himself about how he's basically like an angel of death. Everything he touches just fucking dies, and it's all terrible, and there's this monster that's calling out mother to him, ? And Giles is going down to save someone and or kill himself. It's kind of a mystery. So then we pick up a month and a half later with this character called Rue and this other character called Truman, and they are going down into the basement so that Rue can do him, okay? So there are all these biohazard symbols everywhere on the walls and stuff like this, and Rue says, look up, and sure enough, there's this demon that comes out of nowhere, and it kills Truman, and Rue runs away, but she seems kind of nonchalant about the whole fact that Truman just got killed, plus she punched him in the face right before this, so it's what's actually going on? So then we pick up with our young Rupert, who is going to school, and we get this whole kind of exposition from Willow talking to him about how they're sending him to this charter school outside of Compton, and they know that there's something mystical and magical and scary going on, but they don't exactly know what. And so they're not only letting Giles lay low and not get discovered by the government, but he's also going to kind of investigate all of this. And by the way, his new identity is Ralph Columbo. And that's not really Giles' thing. So Rupert is going into high school, like undercover or what the heck ever, and he's not thrilled about having to go back to high school, and he's like, like nothing changes, like high school to high school, they're all the friggin' same. Here we go. So Giles is going through the halls trying to figure out his way through life, and he thinks these guys are picking on him, but they're actually calling out this girl called Blue. Now keep her in mind, she's a whole thing, and these guys are like basically trying to bully her for some reason. I don't know why, because she's super hot. So Giles thinks to himself, like, don't get involved because you're supposed to be undercover, but then he's like, I'm feeling bad for this Blue girl, so he drops his stuff everywhere so that the bullies will pick on him instead of her. Stuff goes down, the bullies try and pick a fight with Giles, but then the principal shows up with these like 2 school cops and basically shuts down everything, and it's kind of weird. It's just kind of weird. So amidst the hustle and bustle, Rupert's backpack got all thrown to the side, and now he can't find it, and then he actually, in the process of looking for it, comes across this guy that apparently Giles used to know back when he was an adult, and like well before he met Buffy, and now this guy is actually the math and science teacher at this charter high school for like overachievers, and it doesn't really make sense to Giles. And this guy, he like can't get up. He's kind of like lethargic. It's super weird. Again, with the weird. So this guy and Rupert talk a little bit back and forth about how they both know his wife, etc. And then this demon thing comes up after Giles leaves the room, and it grabs Rupert's like long lost friend and basically refers to the idea that Rupert is this demon tentacly, because they're all fucking tentacly now, monster's mother? Like, mother is Giles? Again with the weird. So Rue, the girl that led Truman down to the tentacly monster in the school basement, yeah, Giles accidentally bumps into her and they're like sprawled out on the floor, and this security guard thinks that they were in a fight, and so he rounds them up and binds them together. But he's got this weird tattoo on the back of his neck that says AIX, and again with the weird, we don't know what the heck's going on. So outside the principal's office, we find out that 3 people from the school are missing. There's like the special ed teacher, and then the assistant to the principal, Wong, and also this Truman guy. And now Rue saw what happened to Truman, but she's not really letting people in on what really happened to Truman. But yeah, they talk about, Giles and this girl talk about the fact that there's something that's making people super lethargic and just not like woke in the school and like what to do, right? So Rue tells Giles that this whole thing is not isolated just to this school, that it's happening everywhere, it's happening all around. People are vanishing and or just kind of like losing their spirits, and it's like not cute for anybody. And they both talk about the fact that like there's this smell of peaches in the air, which is a whole other thing again. And then Giles and Rue get into this like awkward sexual chemistry situation, again with the weird. I cannot express enough the weirdness. So Giles goes down into the basement because he thinks he can figure out what's going on with the missing and or dead people that seem to be going missing from the basement, and he casts a spell to find the traces of magic left behind by the demon in question. Giles has cast this spell, but then this demon thing comes out and grabs him and calls him mother, and then Giles expels the spell and runs the fuck out of there. Now, we find out that Giles' backpack had actually been commandeered by this chick called Rue that was down in the basement and then locked up outside the principal's office, etc. She's going through it. She's like, he's not who he says he is. He needs to go ahead and get the heck out of here before bad shit happens to him. So Giles goes to lunch and he sees that basically all of the students in the lunchroom are under some kind of like stupefying spell where basically there's nothing to do. it's like they have all the possibilities in the world, but they're not doing anything, and it's super weird, and Giles doesn't know what the heck is up with all the weirdness. So there's like this room next to the cafeteria, I guess, and he goes in and meets this chick called Mrs. Vega, I think her name is. Yeah, she's this teacher's aide, and she talks about how, like, all the others got away, but she confessed to her sins and stuff like this, so the demon didn't get her, and it's super weird, and I don't understand it. So Giles looks and notices the fact that this particular room that she's in is, like, lead-lined, and it used to be used to, like, stop gamma radiation and all these radioactive waveforms getting in. And he's saying, like, whatever is happening to the rest of the students to make them all be like this, maybe the reason that it's not affecting you isn't because you believed or whatever, but because you're in this, like, super lead-lined room. She's like, nah, it has nothing to do with the not a radioactive room, and you need to wear this mirror around your neck, and when you can see yourself outside the mirror, then you'll be ready to do the damn thing, which makes no sense. So after his day at school, Rupert is walking home. I don't know really where he's walking to because, you know, Xander and Dawn are about to hit the road. Anyway, so he gets attacked by the bullies that were going after Blue, this girl, earlier in the day. And also, while they were outside the principal's office, Rue was saying that her thing was she was protecting Blue from guys like this. So, meh. So sure enough, these guys have Rupert on the ropes, but he casts this, like, smoke blinding spell to keep himself hidden, but then the main bully comes in and he's got a fucking knife. So sure enough, Rue shows up, but hello, she's a vampire. Rue fights off all the bullies and she goes to actually eat bully number 1. But Rupert contains her with the spell and he's like, hell no, girl. What's up with you? You're a vampire, I'm a watcher, etc. Rue and Rupert get super kind of flirty all of a sudden, and they're kind of like developing this truce, and they're talking to each other about this demon and how they might like be able to come in handy for one another. Okay, because they both have similar goals of protecting Rue, or girl Blue, on the one hand, and also Giles has come to get to the bottom of the situation, and so if this thing gets it's a whole thing. So like they decide they're gonna work together, right? She's got the vampire strength, he's got the watcher know-how, they can use each other, and maybe it'll all be okay. And so it looks like we have an official team to figure out what's going on in the basement, and they shake on it. And when they shake on it, we realize that, hello, she has the same tattoo on her wrist as old Sheffield, the security guard, had on the back of his neck way back in the issue, right? And that's where we end the issue. Okay, so I realize that Giles is in a 13-year-old body, although I guess they aged him up a couple of years here because he seems to be like 15 or 16, which is like, where does the time go? I don't know. He looks much older in this than he appears in both the beginning and end of Buffy season 11, which is a whole thing. That's one of the problems of switching artists is, you know, yeah, he looks about 16, if I'm going to be honest with you. And in Rebecca Isaac's version of him, he looks very much like 12 or 13. So it's a whole thing. I don't understand the timeline of this to begin with.
You know nothing.
And now I realize again that he's like an adult in this teen body, and that's all confusing, but when he doesn't know that Rue is a vampire, he's got this super boner for her, and it comes across as super fucking creepy, because Giles is like 60, if we're gonna be real about it. Like, he's like 60 years old, and he thought this girl was like max 17. And so it's super creepy at first when he's flirting with this Rue girl, and it kind of doesn't stop being creepy when we find out that she's a vampire. Like, I get it, we had this whole issue like last season, or season 10, with Olivia, like Olivia and Giles couldn't be together because Olivia couldn't be a pedophile because Giles is in this body, but at the same time it's like he's not really Giles, and so it's like I don't know where that line is with Giles. I felt like it was best with the fairy chick that he had hooked up with because that seemed the most logical because they were both really old and in young appearing bodies. But I don't know. The sexual politics behind this whole issue are just really creeping me out. It's super creepy because he, like, again, like, he's in this body, and so he has these hormonal feelings. Like, he had a total, like, boner for Faith back when he was first resurrected in season 9, and so I get all of that. But, again, it's hard not to think about Giles being, Giles. It's a problem. The other problem is this book. The book's not bad, per se. It's just that I really don't understand what's going on. And for right now, I'm going to give it a pass because they're basically billing this whole Giles book as a mystery story. And so, for now, I'll give them the mystery. But a lot of things just kind of go from A to Z with no middle alphabet. It's super weird. I don't think that the art is doing them any favors here because we just jump from place to place. Like, we go from the cafeteria to suddenly being in this weird room that's like adjacent to / kind of in the cafeteria where this Mrs. Vega character is. And I understand that like all the kids in the school are stupefied and maybe can't like perceive this place for some reason. Again, with the mystery, but it just... there's not enough, especially with this Mrs. Vega character. I just don't understand what's going on. And I don't understand why Giles isn't trying to really clarify this, because I've read this like 3 times now, and I wish that Giles had gone for the clarity. You know what I mean? None of this makes sense to me, as far as the Mrs. Vega situation, because she says that she was a student teacher, or a teacher's aide, rather. And then Giles says, so you were a student? And she goes, I was a student. And I'm thinking, oh, a college student, since she was a teacher's aide. But then she goes, I self-promoted. So I don't understand what the heck's going on. But again, it's a mystery. So I'm giving it a hard pass right now just because of the mystery element to it. But, you know, when we start off in the future and... this is one of those that I'm thinking is going to make a whole shit ton of sense by the time we get to number 4. And it's all being written by Joss, but... there's something... there's something about this issue that's super discombobulating, and I don't know if that's intentional because Giles is kind of out of sorts and out of his element being in high school. And I don't... there's something about this that isn't sitting well with me. But let's get into the mysteries that are actually presented aside from the mystery of how the narrative is structured, because it's kind of... it's a little messy, if you ask me. So, I mean, we've got Blue, Girl Blue, and at the beginning of this, we have all of this for a girl, like when he's diving in, sorta. And so we know that Rue is protecting Blue, and we know that Blue is, like, super hot, and that's pretty much all we know. Now, at the end of the issue, we have Rue, and she's shaking hands with Giles, but she's got this AIX tattoo on her wrist, just like Home Dude, what was his name? The security guard guy. What was his name? He had a tattoo on the back of his neck. Sheffield. And so we're told this issue from both the perspectives of Rupert and Rue. We get inside both of their heads. And so Rue seems to know Sheffield, although we could kind of assume that she just goes here at the beginning. But I mean, obviously, like, Rue and Sheffield are on, apparently, apparently in the same team. But, so here's my kind of, like, initial theory is, like, this demon thing down in the basement is like taking students, and Rue is there to kind of like protect Blue from that, because I think that like Blue might be one of her relatives slash descendants. I'm thinking that she might be in with Principal Boak and with Sheffield. I think that there's something going on that all three of them are currently in on, or were at one point in on together. But something tells me that that's fractured since, you know, Rue's a vampire now. But I don't know. As far as this demon itself is concerned, you know, we've got these biohazard things, and it's calling Giles' mother. So maybe this is some kind of thermogenesis. You know, when they brought Willow, or not Willow, when they brought Buffy back from the dead, it created a demon. And so maybe that's what's going on here. Maybe this demon is some kind of like child of the Giles resurrection that didn't take form until after the new Seed of Wonder took place. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I don't know. Also, the mixtape thing. There's this whole mixtape thing. I mean, if you've read it, you know. But at the bottom of certain pages, there's like a whole mixtape of stuff, and there are different tracks that are supposed to go with the feeling of everything. And it doesn't work for me. It's really distracting. I'm already having a hard enough time figuring out what's going on. And it's not... It's the structure. It's the structure of how things go from one to the other that is really the most confusing part, because there aren't any natural segues from one event to the other. There are a couple of segues that work from scene to scene, but for the most part, you're just jumping around and it's all confusing. Like this dude that Giles just happens to know, happens to be the math and science teacher at this school, and the segues between all of this just aren't there. Like, none of this is really working for me. Again, I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt because it's all supposed to be a mystery, but a mystery should be a mystery that makes sense. I mean, a lot of the conversation that we have as far as the dialogue between the characters, it jumps like 3 steps. Like, the conversation says one thing, but it immediately goes to the nth degree, and they seem to like understand each other. And I don't understand because none of this really makes sense. I don't know. It's super weird. It's super weird. This Vega character, we'll get more of her. We're going to figure out what's going on with Blue. We're going to learn more about Rue, I'm sure. But, yeah, this issue, it's very, very odd in a way that the Buffy books usually aren't. Like, this is weirder than what's going on in Angel Season 11. And Angel Season 11 was pretty much just a bunch of stupid bullshit that just didn't work. But while it didn't work, it made enough sense. I mean, none of it mattered because it was all time travel and whatever, but you could follow what was going on. Here, I can't follow the story, which is a real problem for me. It just doesn't seem like good storytelling. And emotionally, it kind of gets you, but it's super weird. And I don't understand, like, I get it. Like, again, like, I get that Giles is in this teenage body and he's got these hormones, and he obviously is attracted to black women, so like that's something that's nice for them to carry over, like Giles has a type, which in retrospect may put a really creepy light on why he was so gung-ho about Kendra, right? But for him to just hang out with this vampire chick and think that she's hot, he says like, this is so hot. It's like, where are your priorities, Giles? Like, priorities. I get it, you're a teenager, but get your priorities straight. It just seems like him making an alliance with this vampire chick is just kind of retreading stuff that we've already done with Buffy fucking 20 years ago. And it just doesn't really work for me. And again, we have this whole dichotomy of the way that that he appears. Like, he appears much older now than he will by the end of season 11. So I don't know. I don't really like this issue. I'm interested to see where it's going to go just because it's so frustrating. And again, it's a mystery. I get it. Blah, it's a fucking mystery, and, you know, all the pieces are gonna fall where they may. And I hope it really has to do with, like, with Giles, you know, growing up, because it's supposed to be a coming-of-age story, because Giles is gonna be having these coming-of-age stories from now on. It's just, it's super weird. I don't know what's gonna drive Giles to dive off this bridge. I don't know what's at the bottom of the bridge, or like under the bridge or whatever. It's it's really confusing. And like I said, it's fine to be confusing, but just the narrative structure of this is kind of all over the place, and it's mostly linear, but I don't know, man. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I'm not terribly impressed by it. The art's fine. I mean, Giles looks different, but I mean, that's to be expected from artist to artist regardless. He just looks a lot older. The art is fine. It's actually really good in points. I really like Vampire Rue. I like her depiction. Being in Giles' head is a really new thing. We've really only been in Giles' head, I think, at the beginning of season 8 and like issue number 2. But being in Giles' head is a really interesting place to be in, and I feel like that's captured very well, actually. But for the most part, it's just, it reads like kind of a mess. And there's a lot of dialogue to try and help you figure out what's going on. But it's just even more confusing. And again, maybe that's what they're going for with Giles being an adult and a teenager, but it just, it's not really working for me so far. We'll check it out in number 2, but that's what I thought of Buffy the Vampire Slayer Giles, Season 11, Issue number 1, Girl Blue, Part 1. Please let me know what you thought of the issue in the comment section down below. That's pretty much all I've got for today, you guys, but I'm Preston L. Young, and you can come right back here to the Buffyngton Post anytime for Buffy the Vampire Slayer reviews, Angel and Faith reviews, Buffyverse discussions on the other Slayers, and more Giles, Season 11, to come. Yeah, just a little disappointing. Anyway, I hope you're having a great 2018 so far, everybody. Have a great day today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Joe? 730.
So maybe this is some kind of thermogenesis, you know, when they brought Willow, or